Your outie always weaves in their ends right away. Your outie never gets second sock syndrome. What? Your outie loves to knit top-down sweaters. Yes! Please enjoy each fact equally. Hey knitters, welcome to episode 224 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. Yes, I said that right. I'm your host, Devin Ventry. You can find me at KnittyMcPurly.com. I am Knitty McPurly on Instagram, and if you want to email me, I am Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. All that stuff is linked below, as is the subscribe button, so please click that so that you can be notified when my podcast comes out every week, as it does. Got a little bit of a different setup here today. I'm wearing my microphone. We'll see how that all goes. I'm sure it'll be great. We're coming to the end of the school year. All of you parents and grandparents out there, it's very exciting. Graduations, all the things. We have so much to talk about today. Oh my gosh. But before I get there, I am wearing my Diggory tee. I can walk around and move about now since I have my microphone on me. This is a striped version of the Diggory that I knit 2 years ago. I'm pretty sure this pattern came out in 2023, and I love these. I have 2 of them. They are great. And I was on the Loft website the other day, and I saw this t-shirt, and I thought, oh my gosh, Loft has seen my Diggory tee, and they copied it. No, actually, the Diggory tee is based on a t-shirt, like a knitted t-shirt, like a heavy knitted t-shirt that I had that I'm pretty sure was from J. Crew that I thrifted. So it was like from 15 years ago. I don't know. It's a very basic t-shirt style, very common. So let's get right onto it because like I said, we have a lot to talk about today. Progress and shop news. There are very few advent calendars left. This listing is going to close on Monday. So if you want an advent calendar, I think there's like 1 left in the fingering weight and a handful left in the Dubrovnik DK. These will ship in mid-November, so you need to look out for future you and go pick up a Knitty McPurly For God So Loved the World advent calendar. I talked about this extensively on previous podcasts, so that's all I'll say about it right now, but go and get them because the pre-order will close on Monday. Also happening on Monday, the League of Extraordinary Sock Knitters June sock installment will ship on Monday. So that's what, the 19th. Normally I ship around the 15th, but you'll still get it in plenty of time to start the June socks. I'm super excited about the June socks. While I'm talking, I'm just going to be putting up some pictures that knitters have posted on Facebook of their finished. These are mostly April socks. The April socks were the Surf Wax socks from Summer Lee's Sock Project book. And the knitters did such an amazing job. The League, as we shall call them, did an amazing job on April's socks. Most of them are still working on May's socks, which were the Trompe Le Monde socks. You might see a couple of those in there too. But June is shipping out on Monday, and these are, I think, the happiest socks yet. They're so happy. Like I was putting them together going, oh my gosh, these are just, I'm filled with joy just looking at these skeins of yarn that will soon be socks. I also want to say, don't stress if you get behind. Like if you are just now finishing January socks and you want to get on the Facebook group and just post those things, you do that, sister. No judgment, totally fine. I have some people who don't live in the US who always get, it takes a lot longer for them to get their packages. And so don't stress if you are behind because you can knit these socks at your own pace, however you like. On that note, I'm trying to decide what we're going to do for next year because this year's sock club runs January through December. What are we going to do for next year? I thought about maybe one of those Charlotte Stone knitting books, sock knitting books that I showed on a previous podcast. My only hesitation is that they're almost entirely colorwork socks. And so I don't know how many people want to knit 12 months of colorwork socks, but let me know. I also had good suggestions on a blanket club. So we'll see. We'll see. And that brings me along to the topic of where's the balm, Devin? Where's the balm? Where is the balm? Why is there not any balm lately? And the reason for that is because the sock club and the color of the month, along with your regular sweater quantities that you guys order from me, thank you so much, and our knit alongs, that has been keeping me busy. Remember, I am a one-woman shop with a very small number of helpers, so I can't do everything. But in August, I will have all of my children in school for the first time ever. It's exciting. So I have ideas going forward, probably going into January, stuff that we're going to start for next year. Yeah, it's going to be fun. So stay tuned if you're interested in all that. The May color of the month sock sets are available. This is what the DK looks like knit up, and I still have a few skeins of DK. I am making a Wisteria tank by Joan Ho, as we talked about, and you'll notice that I got some done, like a little bit more has been accomplished. I got a little bit done on all of my projects because at different times during the week, I would have different projects near me. Gigi got her driving permit, which means I now have knitting time in the car. And at first I couldn't knit because she was a new driver. And so I had to be watching all the time, but now she's pretty good. So I'd still watch, but the knitting keeps me calm because Northern Virginia driving is not beginner driving. So when you learn to drive around here, it's trial by fire. So I got a good bit done on the Wisteria tank. I'm not sure, this is maybe 5 inches. I have a couple more inches to get the bottom of that. This is a bottom up tank. I also made some progress on my Benedicta that I've been working on since October. And the reason for that is because my husband and I sat down to watch a movie and I went to get my Hey Sailor project to work on, and I grabbed this one by accident. So I'm actually got some good progress there. And I'm not sure how much more I'm doing. I don't think there's all that much in this. And then we start the color work at the bottom and the ribbing. Because it's not cropped, but it's not super long either. And I also got work done on my Hey Sailor. So it was a good week for knitting. Not an amazing week. I got a little bit of progress. It's not amazing, you guys. A little bit of progress on the Hey Sailor. How are your Hey Sailors coming? So mine is Jovis and Fontaine. Can't wait to see how your Hey Sailors are coming. This is a fun pattern. It's not the most fun mosaic color work that I've ever done, but it's fun. I like it. I love the yarn. The Fiji fingering, the shirts that I have in the Fiji, I have 2 of them. They are my go-to when it is hot outside because if I put those on, I will not be hot. It'll be like I'm wearing just like a cotton t-shirt. Okay, so of course, this is the week that I decide to introduce a new segment, the week when I have like the longest topic of the week ever. I want to talk about book and show and movie recommendations because you guys are good and recommendations are only as good as the recommender. So I trust you. I feel like you guys have good taste and I also have some great things to recommend. So I'm going to try, I don't know if I can do this every week, but a book, a show, and a movie every week. Currently, my favorite book is The Mysterious Case of Rudolph Diesel. You might be thinking, what? I found this totally by accident on Audible. And when I say I read books, I listen to them on Audible while I dye yarn. That's how I read because I don't have time to sit and actually turn pages. But if you do, this is an amazing book, or if you want to listen to it on Audible. It is so interesting. It's the story, a true story about Rudolph Diesel, the guy who invented the diesel engine, and who killed him, or did he die at all? Did he fake his own death? So it's great. Could have been John Rockefeller that killed him. Could have been Kaiser Wilhelm III that killed him. Could have been a number of people, because it was right at the beginning of World War I, and this diesel engine was going to be a game changer for the war. Every country wanted it. So well written, so interesting, highly recommend. Okay, a movie that I just saw, and this is my treadmill movie. If I'm on the treadmill, I'm allowed to watch the movie. So I watched it in like 4 installments. It was Fly Me to the Moon, which is not a new movie. It had Scarlett Johansson and that really good-looking guy. I forget his name. He's super handsome. Anyway, I think it's fiction. I don't think it's like historical fiction, but it's about that first trip to the moon in the summer of 1969. Cute movie, very cute, feel good watch. Now, the show that is like my current obsession is Severance on Apple TV. If you have not seen that, thank you, Emily. Hi, Emily. Emily is the one. Emily is the moderator on Facebook for the Sock Club, and she's the one who recommended Severance to me. Oh my gosh. It's amazing. Okay. Topic of the week. We have a big topic of the week today. It is quite the rabbit hole that I fell into headfirst, so I can't wait to tell you all about it. And the question is, who owns big knitting? Is big knitting a thing? Does that really exist? Because it seems like there's a lot of independent designers and small companies. So I was thinking about, in the grocery store, pretty much everything at the grocery store can be traced back to a few small companies. There's a book out called The Secret Life of Groceries, which I have not read, but it is on my list, that talks about this topic. And it got me thinking, who owns big knitting? Like, who's behind it? How many of these companies, yarn companies, if you trace it back, go back to some private equity firm? And how many of them are owned by families or individuals? So I did a deep dive. Okay. Happily, there are many independents, there are many family owned, but there are some that are owned by these big corporations. And why does it matter? If you are closer to your product, then it is going to be a better product. You're going to have better service and quality, I think, in general. So when I compiled these two lists of who is a big company or who's owned by a big company, some of them will surprise you. And the reason you'll be surprised is because it was a small independent company that was bought out by a bigger company. And many of them will surprise you that they're actually kind of small. They might even be huge, but they're still owned by a family or an individual. So let's get right into this. Yeah, so obviously, Knitty McPurly is a small independent business. Any profit that comes out of my business goes directly to pay for my children's Christian school tuition, because that is what I spend literally all of my money on. So that's what you're funding. And this is the same with other small businesses too. When you support small businesses, you are supporting the founder and the employees directly. And so that's really nice. I really like that. I think it's great to support small businesses rather than huge corporations who exist so far away from their product and their customer that it's just not as good. You're not going to get the same level of service and quality, I think. And if you read the book, The Secret Life of Groceries, which again, I have not read, I've only read parts of it, there can even be atrocities involved. Like when there's that great distance and the people at the top are so concerned about making the product cheap, there can be slave labor involved in that. So there's not much slave labor at Knitty McPurly, although sometimes children do help out, and I do pay them, so I guess it's not slave labor. And all of this, too, is why I suspected the Knit Nation newspaper, which I did order today, got online and ordered it. It cost me $10.95 because it's $7 plus $3.95 for shipping. And it is recurring, But I did have that commenter last week that said that she canceled and it was hassle-free. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go ahead and subscribe and we'll see if we like it. I got some comments on that too. So we'll talk about that in the comment section. First of all, before I get into these companies, let me say that the largest producer of yarn in the world is China. Now, no Knitty McPurly yarn comes from China. All of my yarn comes from Peru. But that is an interesting fact. Let's get into it. Many companies, including Knit Picks, are owned by Premier Needle Arts, which is owned by Blue Point Capital Partners, which is a private equity firm. So I'm going to be putting up this graphic as I'm talking and just going through some of these companies so that you can see who is a big company and who is owned by individuals. Love Crafts and Webs were acquired by the Missouri Star Quilt Company, which is owned and operated by the Doan family, a Mormon family. So you think, gosh, those are huge, huge companies. Webs is a giant company, but it is owned by a family. The Lion brand yarn, which recently acquired Quince & Co. Pam Allen founded Quince & Company, I think, I don't know, maybe 15-ish years ago, and she sold to Lion Brand in 2023, and those are owned and operated by the Blumenthal family, a fifth-generation family business. The current president and CEO is Adam Blumenthal, who is the fifth generation of the family to lead the company. The company was founded in 1878 by Adam's great-great-grandfather, Reuben Blumenthal. So that's kind of awesome. Jimmy Bean's wool was acquired by Local Crafts, which is formerly Premier Needle Arts, which is owned by Blue Point Capital. So, you know, even when these companies sell, who they let buy them matters. Is it family owned or is it owned by some private equity group? They don't knit. They're not in touch with the knitters. They want the lowest price. And that's where things like atrocities come in. That's where potential slave labor could be a thing. I'm not accusing anybody, but when that situation exists, that's how that happens. Brooklyn Tweed, something we all know and love, is owned by two co-owners, Jared Flood and Luigi Baccia. Jared Flood is the founder and creative director, while Luigi Baccia is the business development and operations director. Jared oversees knitwear patterns and takes all the company's photographs, while Luigi develops the company's growth strategy. Spin Right Yarns, which is now owned by Comvest Partners, J.W. Levin Management Partners, and the management team, is the largest craft yarn producer and marketer in North America. So this is one of these big companies, and it owns Bernat, Karen, Patton's, Lily's Sugar and Cream, and I think some others too. Spin Right came up again. Barocco is another one that's owned by Premier Needle Arts that goes back to the Blue Point Capital. Now, Malabrigo is a family-owned company in Peru. They're located in Uruguay. So that is family-owned. Madeline Tosh, which you feel like is a hand dye and was originally an individual-owned company, sold out to Jimmy Bean's Wool. And Jimmy Bean's Wool was acquired by Local Crafts, which goes back to the Blue Point Capital. Cascade Yarns, very big company, is family owned. They're family owned and operated. They were founded in 1987 by Bob Dunbabin, and his son Robert and daughter-in-law Shannon took over the company in 2011. They continue to run the business and uphold Bob's mission of offering high-quality yarns at affordable prices. So this is a family-owned company, but I'm going to venture a guess that most of this yarn probably comes from China because Cascade is a budget brand. I'm guessing, not 100% sure on that. Yarnspirations is owned by Spin Right, so that is another big company. Also, Red Heart is owned by Spin Right. Now, Darn Good Yarn is owned by an individual, Nicole Snow, who founded the company in 2008 with a focus on sustainable and fair trade practices. We Are Knitters Also owned by individuals, Pepita Marin and Alberto Bravo. They co-founded the company in 2011 after a trip to New York, and they are from Europe somewhere, I'm not exactly sure where when they came to New York in 2011, they saw this knitting trend and identified an opportunity to revive the hobby in Europe, which is interesting. I didn't know that We Are Knitters is a European company. And you can get them in the US. I don't know if they ship from Europe or if they have shipping here. I don't know. Plymouth is owned by Spinrite, as is Karen, Redheart, and Coates & Clark. So those are all owned by big companies and private equity firms. Now, that was what I found on the yarn front. When I looked into knitting needles, it was a totally different story. All of the knitting needles that I looked at, the big brands, are owned by families or individuals. And it seemed like each country had their brand. So let's talk about ChiaoGoo, because that's my favorite needle. It's Chinese, as it sounds. Let me read you the story from ChiaoGoo's website. It is super interesting. Westingbridge LLC is a family-owned business that was started by 4 brothers in China. Its ChiaoGoo brand knitting and crochet tools are designed and distributed today in Troy, Michigan, and the manufacturing facility is in Hangzhou, China. The brothers grew up in Linan, China, the bamboo capital of China. Grandfather was a bamboo craftsman who spent the majority of his life traveling from town to town with his bamboo toolkit, making household goods such as chairs, tables, sheets, rice barrels, baskets, and steamers. The father followed in the grandfather's footsteps and built a small workshop in the 1980s at the birth of the primitive free market in China. The workshop produced similar household goods, but the primary product was bamboo knitting needles. Demand for the knitting needles originated with the mother. She is an excellent knitter and knit in order to keep her family warm during the long, cold winters. She would often knit extra items and sell them to neighbors and friends to make some extra money for her family of 7. She was the needle tester and frequently asked for special needles to meet her needs. She's the inspiration for the ChiaoGoo brand name, which means highly skillful and crafty lady. In the 1990s, the family decided to expand the product line and its production capacity in order to prepare for overseas distribution. In 2005, the 4 brothers made a milestone decision to incorporate the manufacturing part of the business with the marketing and distribution part of the business outside of China. Today, the business has expanded to become one of the most respected producers of knitting and crochet tools. Isn't that cool? Like, yes, it's from China, but it's not the slave labor CCP China. It's like a family-owned Chinese business. I hope all that is true. And if it is, I am here for it all day because I love ChiaoGoo. A similar story happened over in Germany, and that is the Addi Knitting Needle Company. It has been manufacturing knitting needles since 1829, and the company is now in its 6th generation of ownership. Cool. Knitter's Pride is owned by Knit Pro, and that's new. They kind of all came together in 2024. Another one that's owned by Knit Pro, there's another one. Lantern Moon and Knitter's Pride are now owned by Knit Pro, and that is a family-owned business out of India. It's not the same, though. It's not like it's been passed down like Addi and ChiaoGoo was. Still owned by a family. Leica needles come out of Norway, and they're manufactured in Nepal. Cool. Family-owned business. Now, the Clover manufacturing company and Clover Needlecraft is out of Japan. And their website has this whole beautiful story about how in 1925, Mr. Toshio Okada, at the age of 26, looked to his book of wisdom, and which said, "Look to nature," and he picked a clover, and it was upon that he built his needlework empire. Again, I don't know how apocryphal these stories are and how true they are, but they're nice stories. So this goes back to 1925, as I said. In 1983, Clover USA was established. But again, this is still owned by a family. It's still a family-owned business. Now, the last company that I want to talk about is Brittany Needles. Because after I found all of these different knitting needles with their interesting stories in their respective countries, I was like, well, who makes knitting needles in the United States? And Brittany Needles popped up. This is a great story. I loved it. I actually emailed them after I read this and said, can I sell your needles in my store? So here's the story. Jean and Gaylor Barnes started Brittany in their garage in Northern California 41 years ago. Their children took over from them, worked with them for 15 years, and then took over the business in 2013. They do all the manufacturing right in-house. They're a small family business. Here they are. I'm not sure if this is their son and his wife or their daughter and her husband. I don't know. But it's their family business. They have a commitment to being very green. They use a lot of recyclables. Even their packaging is compostable if you remove the label. They recycle shipping material. And they don't sell any of their products in chain or big box stores. They only sell them through small businesses. So I don't have a brick and mortar. I don't know if I would qualify as, what they're looking for, because they say they want to support, the local yarn store, which is great. If I could afford a brick and mortar, I would totally have one, but I can't. So, and I don't know how viable that would be here in Northern Virginia anyway. That's why we don't have many. But anyway, how interesting was all that? I did that deep dive and I just thought it was super interesting. If you have any comments or you want to add anything to that, please leave me a comment. You guys know a lot of things and you always have information that I didn't know before. So please leave me a comment. I love reading those. And moving right along to the comments section. Annie M. says, thank you for explaining the difference between variegated and tonal yarns and when they should be used. It was very helpful. You are so welcome. I found that to be a very interesting deep dive too. That was like a little mini deep dive because it's easy to get seduced by a beautiful skein. And then you get it and you go, well, what am I going to do with this? So knowing when to use the variegated and when to use the tonals, which we talked about last week. If you missed that episode, go watch that now and you too can learn about that topic. Oklahoma, Texas Sheep Lady says, the flower child tee is pretty, but not beautiful like your water ship. Well, isn't that so sweet? And I responded saying, you're so sweet. And she said, nope, not sweet. It's intrinsically more beautiful. So thank you for that. I do love water ship. I almost wore it today, but maybe next week. Jan from the Yarn Con story 2 weeks ago left a comment and she said, we met up in Plymouth, Indiana at the Woolly Buffalo Yarn Store. That's her local yarn store. Yarn Con was held at Plumbers Hall in downtown Chicago the first week of March. People came from as far away as Ohio and Michigan to attend the bus trip. It was amazing and so much fun. The store is currently organizing another bus trip for August to attend Allegan, Michigan's Fiber Festival. So the store is called the Woolly Buffalo. If I can find information, I will link it below so that people who live in that area can get in on the bus trip because that sounds like so much fun. The Happy Crafter says, I believe the difference between the tubular and the Italian bind-off is that the tubular has 2 setup rounds, whereas the Italian does not. And on that note, I got an email from Tanya. Hi, Tanya. And she says, yes, the tubular involves setup row with slip stitches, and then you do the sewn Italian bind off. The Italian bind off does not have that setup row. So I'm not sure, is the setup row worth it? What do we think? So Tanya's a big fan, but she showed me this beautiful picture of this bind off, but I don't know if that is the tubular or the Italian. So Tanya, tell us, in this picture, did you do the setup row or not? It looks amazing. And she also linked to a video that she said was really helpful. So I will put that down in the show notes also so that you can click on that video if you're interested in the Italian/tubular bind off. Okay, Karen left me a comment about the Knit Nation newspaper. Here's what she had to say. She said she got her free copy of the Knit Nation newspaper. So I didn't get in on it early enough. I had to pay for mine. And she just paid the $4. And she was a little surprised that that meant that it was going to be $10 every month. So she ended up canceling it because of the cost, but she did think it was good. She said, the newspaper is sturdy and made of quality paper. It had interesting articles, and I love doing the word puzzles. I think I'm going to love that too. She says, I'm still working on the crossword. There were multiple patterns. The newspaper gave me hours of knitting fun. That's something. So then she explains how she decided to cancel because of the cost, but not because of the quality. She did like it. I also got this comment from Tara via email, and it's the subject is shade on size inclusivity. And she says, Devin, I laughed during your knitting fantasy section where you said, find me that person. And then real humans don't exist for those sizes. Now, these are Tara's words. I disagree with her, but she says, I'm a fatty and my bust size is 44 inches. I swear I have seen patterns with a 72-inch bust, which is my husband's height. It's unbelievable. I told some other knitting friends what you said. We started talking about it, and one of them posed a question to AI, and the results are below. Needless to say, we were all dying laughing. So here are some pictures of a woman with a 72-inch bust. And it's just unlikely, right? Just a little unlikely. Okay. Moving right along to knitting fantasies. This episode has been so chock full of cool and awesome information and stuff that I only have one knitting fantasies pick for you, but I do want to recommend this designer. I just found her. She is on Etsy. I'll link her shop below. It is called Knit for Sweet Designs. And she has a bunch of beautiful fingering weight cotton and linen and silk summer garments. So the one that I picked for today is the Born on the Beach dress. The only thing that makes me hesitate about this pattern is she doesn't have any pictures of herself standing up in it. She's always sitting down. So stand up in it so we can see what the whole thing looks like. This particular pattern is in Quince & Co. Sparrow, which is 100% linen, organic linen from Italy, which makes it sound really fancy. So I thought this was beautiful. She had many patterns that are similar to this, very breezy and summery. If I were going to knit one of these, I would pick Knitty McPurly Fiji Fingering because I'm just biased like that. And I know that I love that yarn to knit with. Doesn't hurt my hands. Like I haven't knit with 100% linen before. Does it hurt your hands? Cotton will hurt my hands if it's 100%. So I like that wool cotton blend, but we've talked about this before, I feel like. But anyway, go check her out on Etsy. Her patterns are about $8 each. They're not on sale or anything, but you're just supporting her family and her small business when you pay full price. So I'm sure she would thank you for that. All right, so here's what happened. You guys, I am coming down to the wire on So Here's What Happened stories. I have one for today. I have one for next week. After that, I am dead in the water. So if you have a knitting story that is hilarious or ridiculous or embarrassing or tragic or heartwarming, please send it to me. Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. I would love a video. You can send in an audio recording. You can type it out and I will read it for you. Whatever you want to do, I would love to share your story on the podcast. This is a great story from Andrea. Hi, Andrea. And after she sent it to me, I was like, can you send me a picture? Because it's just a story of about 40 years that I felt needed a picture. So I will share that as we go. She says, in 1987, I went to Elizabeth Zimmerman's knitting camp in Marshfield, Wisconsin. Wow. 9-year-old me would have been so excited to go to that. I wish you could have called me up and been like, Devin, I know you're 9, but please come to this thing. You're going to love it. I would have loved it. It was a 5-day sleepover camp that included 4 days of knitting instruction. I began knitting in 1982 and was excited to attend the camp and meet Elizabeth and her daughter Meg Swanson, who to me were knitting superstars. Yes, they're knitting superstars to everyone. She says, I shared housing with 4 people in my age group, and I met a really fun woman named Shelley who didn't live too far from me. I had no idea that I would be meeting one of my best friends for life. For many years, we have attended conferences together and discussed some of our favorite knitwear designers and yarns. We also share photos of our finished projects. We have spent considerable amounts of time together. We've been each other's bridesmaids, attended our kids' birthday parties, and even our kids' weddings. And here is a picture that Andrea shared of her and Shelley. So I'm pretty sure Andrea is the blonde one and Shelley is the brunette one. This is from one of their kids' weddings, and they just look so great. They look so happy and festive, and it's just such a beautiful picture of them and their husbands. Andrea says, I feel lucky that knitting has brought me today not only an exciting hobby, but also a special friendship. That is awesome. I love that. That is so great. It doesn't always happen like that. I find that some of my knitting friends who I just love, I've met over the internet, through the podcast, and through the retreats. Most of them don't live near me, but I wish that they did. It would be so, so fun. I can't believe it's gone on this long. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful week and happy knitting. Bye.